Hey everybody, Trevor here, and we're working on eBay again today, specifically this week on the legal side of the business, the tax side of the business a little bit, which is important. A lot of you guys who have done any selling on eBay, specifically those of you guys who have tried to work with a wholesale drop shipper, you'll have found that they sometimes in their applications will ask you about the legal side of your business. They might ask for an official legal business name, or they may ask for certain tax ID numbers. And I get that question all the time. Well, what ones do I need, and why, and how do I go about finding them or getting them? Well, I want to talk about that today so that you guys can get that taken care of, okay? Now, just real quick, for those of you guys who are here live with me, how many actually have registered their business name or have a registered LLC or have tax ID numbers? Who's got stuff like that and who doesn't? I'm curious. I'd be willing to bet a lot of you guys have. I'm seeing mostly yeses, I do. And if you're like, Trevor, I don't. Sorry. And there's a few of you guys that are like that here. If you don't have them, it's something you should consider getting relatively soon. I mean, you can start working on your business and selling without this stuff. Don't get me wrong. But at some point, you should get your hands on it for tax reasons and for legal reasons. Okay. My one caveat before I start this with you guys is that I'm not a CPA. I'm not a certified public accountant, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'm an entrepreneur like you guys, and being an entrepreneur, you usually have to learn a little bit of everything, right? You hear people who in the college, they go and they study to be a lawyer, they study to be an accountant, maybe they study to be a marketer or a finance person in business, whatever the case may be. Well, when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of have to know a little bit of everything, and so I want to teach you guys just enough today to be able to be set from a legal side, okay? All right, so let's talk about what we need to have, our needs from a legal perspective. And I'm just going to write these down, 1, 2, 3. First of all, we really need to have a registered, and I'm going to say legal business name. Now, question for you guys that have done this before. Do you first of all, do you register or where do you register your legal name? I guess that's my question. Where do you go about doing that? And while you're answering, it's also called a DBA, maybe, or a doing business as. Okay, that's another name for it. Or maybe you've heard of it as a, I'm going to say fictitious name. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. Thank goodness for spell check, right? Fictitious name. Or how about a trade name, right? So like all of these mean the same thing, right? DBA, doing business as, your legal business name, your registered name, your fictitious name, your trade name. I guess I could even throw another one in there just to hopefully cover all of our bases. How about assumed business name? Okay. Yeah, it's a state name, guys. It's so this isn't actually a federal thing. This is a state thing. So I'm going to just put this down here in our notes. So remember, this is with your state. Okay? Not a federal thing. It's not something you register with the federal government. It's through your state. Now, if you don't register a name, do you know what your assumed business name is? Like, for example, let's say I have a business and I never registered a name with my state, and I had to do my taxes for my business at the end of the year. Your DBA or your fictitious name, you don't really have one. Your business name is your own name. So when I file my taxes, I would be Trevor Shiv. to the government. That's how they would know me. That's one reason why you get a business name is I don't want to file my taxes that way. I don't want to be known to my vendors that way. If I've got a potential wholesale drop shipping supplier that wants to work with me and they ask me for a legal name, I don't want to sound like an amateur, right? I want to have something official that's registered. So there's one reason why you need to get it sooner rather than later. Now, if you're in the spot of our program where you're mainly working on retail drop shipping, you may not need to get your DBA or your registered name right off the bat. Okay, you can do business as yourself to start if you want, but at some point it would be wise, especially when you start considering working with wholesalers, how to go about doing it, right? Okay, so let's say I'm in the state of Utah, guys, and let's say I'm trying to do this by myself. Now, let me throw out something else before we go into this. I would say it's always probably advisable to maybe have somebody do it for you, maybe a local accountant that you trust. We have partners and affiliates that can help you out with it. I think it's wise, to have somebody who knows what they're doing do the legal side. But if you're confident enough, based on some of the things we talk about today, you can manage it too. It's not something you have to do. Okay, so let's talk about maybe the how of this legal business name. I'm in Utah. I'm starting a brand new business. Here's what I would do, and you can follow this pattern for yourself if you're trying to do this for yourself in your state. I'm going to look for my state's official website, and in this case, I believe it's utah.gov. And if you don't know what your state's official website is, usually you can just search for it in Google. North Carolina official website, Florida state website, but usually it's like fl.gov or florida.gov, so it's either the shortened version or the longer version followed with a .gov. Okay, so here's Utah's. What I'm going to look for very first thing here, if I want to register a name, is I'm going to look for their business section, and it just so happens, and I'm doing this on the fly, guys. I haven't prepared any of this. I want to kind of see you or show you my thought process when I do this. I'm going to come up here to business, and let's look at their business section. And again, granted, your website might look a little different than this, florida.gov or ca.gov for California or washington.gov or whatever, nv.gov for Nevada. It's all going to look a little bit different, but most of them, for the most part, have a business section. So let's look in the business section here. Let's see if we can find something about creating or starting a business. Here's a starting a business section. I'd probably start here. And they've got lots of resources. Let's see. It says thinking of starting a business but don't know how. Use the links below. Okay. Counseling. I don't need that. I want something. I don't need a business plan. I don't need to assess my business idea. Maybe select my business structure. I really want to find out how to register a name. I'm going to look at online business services. Maybe they've got something for me here. Nothing here. This is for different industries. Nope, nothing that I feel like is really showing me how to register a business name. Okay. I don't see anything. And I'm glad this is the case, guys, because this is going to happen to you guys all the time when you're trying to figure out how to get started registering your business name. So if I can't find anything, I'm going to look for a way to contact somebody here in the business section of the state. Okay, maybe they've got some contact information here somewhere on the site, and I'll usually look somewhere here on the bottom. Maybe in their footer, they've got a way to contact. You guys see anything? Oh, here's a support link up here at the top. You guys see that? Let's click support. And they've got a live chat. So they've got live chat. They've got a phone number. They've got an email here. so I would probably go here, get somebody on live chat or give somebody a call, and I'd say, hey, I'm starting a new business. I need to know how to register my business name. Okay? And then you could go about doing it. Now, here's a caveat for you guys. Whenever you're registering a business, if you are, so you saw one of the links there that talked about choosing a structure. Let me fill this in. Go to state website and find out how, look for contact information if needed. Okay. So let me put a C here. Really, before you go in to register a business name, you need to ask yourself a question. Am I going to be an LLC or a sole proprietor? Okay. Now, guys, some of you guys that are already experts at this, what's the difference? What's the difference between an LLC and just being a normal sole proprietor? That these things are business statuses. Okay. So what's the difference? Or is there? An LLC is a type of corporation legally, right? It's called a limited liability corporation. A sole proprietor, we're actually all sole proprietors. You don't have to register to be a sole proprietor. You just are one. That just means that you're the sole entrepreneur of your business. You're the sole owner, right? It's your company. It's not registered as anything else but that. Yeah, so an LLC, good guys, an LLC protects you, right? And what I always say is if somebody tried to sue you, and in all the years I've actually done coaching and mentoring for internet businesses, I've never heard of one person that's been sued that I've ever been associated with. So I don't think it's likely that a lawsuit would come on you. But whoever thinks that anyway, right? I guess you always want to protect yourself. So if you have an LLC protecting your business or your assets, that means that you've registered this official limited liability corporation, and if somebody came and sued you for whatever reason, you wouldn't be liable personally with your assets. So they couldn't, in other words, they couldn't come in and take your house or take money in your bank or make you sell your stock to pay them. They can't come after your personal assets. They can only come after what the business has. So it's a way to help yourself sleep better at night. If I'm doing a lot of business, I would never just stay as a sole proprietor because I don't want to run the risk. I mean, if you're making good money and you have assets to protect, you should be an LLC or some type of corporation. If you're just starting, it's really just fine to be a sole proprietor if you want to, right? Because you're just starting. It's not like you're doing a ton of business. And like I said, the probability shows that you're probably not going to get sued. But I mean, I have to put out this caveat. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to give you all the details behind the pros and cons of an LLC and just being a sole proprietor. But just to tell you, most of my clients end up with an LLC at some point or another. It's better if you can do it sooner, but if you have to wait till later, it's not the end of the world. Okay? So, and again, just to clarify, when should you do all of this? Well, whenever you're ready, especially if you're looking to contact wholesale suppliers. A lot of this stuff needs to be done so that you can submit your applications and get set up. Okay, good. And by the way, hey Matt, I just saw you come in. Any guys, questions about LLC versus sole proprietorship, or does that make pretty good sense? Now, if you have an LLC, okay, I'm going to call this example. Let's say I have an LLC. I'm going to call it, Ship Group Enterprises LLC. Let's say that's my LLC name. I've got it registered with the state. I went into the state's website and I officially got it registered and set up. That right there is my legal name, okay? That LLC name covers this requirement. So I'm done. If you've registered an LLC, that's your legal trade name, okay? If you haven't, well, then you should, instead of doing business as Trevor Ship, I can still register an official name. In fact, I remember the first time I did this, I registered something like TRS, you know, here, let's space this out here. So if I'm a sole proprietor, I can't remember exactly, but it was like TRS, which is my initials, Global Internet Ventures. That's what I call myself, right? I'm not an LLC. I'm just TRS Global Internet Ventures. And that sounds awfully official, right? For a college kid starting his first business. Well, you can sound that way, and that's why it's nice when you go contacting a supplier and they're like, "Hey, what's your business name?" You know, I'm TRS Global Internet Ventures. I sound like I'm somewhat legitimate, right? But I'm just a sole proprietor, and I may have registered this through my state. And I don't know on the costs, guys, because the costs are all a little bit different per state. But usually, if you're a sole proprietor, it's not too much. It's pretty darn cheap. Okay. Matt, you said with the LLC, which I have, what do I have to submit to them? You and I are talking about this next week. Yeah, let's chat about that for sure, Matt, because that'll be very specific to you. We'll definitely talk about that for sure. All right, so needs, number one. Okay, are we good with number one with the business name all through the state? Number two, okay, you need this. If you don't have it already, and I'm curious how many people have this that are here with me live, you need a state resellers permit. And I'm gonna name this just like I did with all the other things. Or it's called a state sales tax permit, or state tax ID, or what else is it called? State resellers permit, state sales tax permit, tax ID. I guess it's got a lot of different names. Do any of you guys have that? You know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about your resellers permit? Oh, I guess that's the other one. Just a reseller license is another thing that it's called. In fact, if you're looking at a supplier's application, you're going to see a lot of suppliers that will ask about this specific permit. Well, somebody who's here live with me, tell me what it is. And no, actually, Chris, it's different than your EIN, okay? This is also a state number. The EIN, which we'll talk about here in just a second, is a federal number, okay? So this is issued through the state. Yeah, sometimes it's called a business license too, of some sort. Yeah, so Angela, yes. I mean, this gives us the ability to resell legally. So here's the law, right? You guys are probably all pretty familiar with this because we talk about this a lot when you start selling online. If I, living in Utah, based in Utah, businesses here in Utah, if I sell to somebody in Florida, California, Texas, North Dakota, or any of the other states in the United States other than Utah, I don't charge sales tax. I don't have to because they're buying from me in another state. However, if somebody in my state of Utah buys a product from me online, guess what? I need to legally, well, I'm legally required to charge them Utah state sales tax. Now, here's the problem. Before you can actually charge that sales tax, you have to be licensed to do it. So you really, if you're charging sales tax right now, guys, and you haven't done this, in theory, you really should have one of these permits first. So if you don't have one yet, do exactly what I was telling you a minute ago. Go to your state's website and try to find something about it. And I just told you it comes in all sorts of different names here, right? State resellers permit, state sales tax permit, state tax ID, reseller license. I could contact the state of Utah here and I could ask them where to go and what form I need to fill out to get this for myself, okay? Before you do this, though, make sure this part is done, number one. You've got your business name. Okay. Now, the real reason why we bring this up now is, again, you're going to see on a lot of supplier applications, if you guys are working with wholesalers, that they want to see your state reseller permit. They're going to ask you about it, and they even may ask you for a copy of it, or they want to see evidence of it. Now, why are they asking about it? Well, this is another way they legitimize you as a business. They want to make sure you're legit, that you're licensed correctly, you're permitted correctly, and that's usually what you need to do to prove that. So you need to get one if you don't have it. Okay. Questions about this this state number here? Let me look through your questions here. Yeah, and you'll probably hear different things from tax people. Jeff said his tax guy said he doesn't necessarily need one. You may not, depending on where you live, but if a supplier asks for it, you're going to want to have one, and so you should probably pick one up either way, just in case your supplier asks. Well, so Matt, technically I'm not dealing with tax in a different state. If I sell something, Matt just asked, how are you dealing with tax in a different state when you figured it in, the total, and posted your item? We talk about sales tax on eBay because when I buy from my supplier, usually if it's a retailer, the retail supplier is going to charge me sales tax. But I'm talking about me as the seller. I don't charge my customer sales tax. That might be a cost of my product if I'm doing it on eBay, but I'm saying technically I can't charge sales tax to my customer, which I would never do anyway unless that person was located in my state. And that rule should apply to all of you guys for the most part, okay? Now, why does Walmart do it for everybody? Like, Walmart charges sales tax wherever you are, even if you buy online. Well, that's because they have something called Nexus, N-E-X-U-S, Nexus, which means they have a physical location in every state. If my internet business had a physical location in California and Oregon and Washington and Idaho and Nevada, then I would have to charge sales tax in those places too. But I'm only physically located in Utah, therefore I only charge Utah state sales tax. Okay. Yeah, Margot, I mean, she says you only need to do this when you're doing drop shipping with wholesalers selling off your website, right? Not straight on eBay. You know, right. I mean, usually when you first start on eBay, you're okay not to have it right up front. But, you know, because, right, you may not sell a whole lot to your state, right? There's 49 other states. If you live in a place like Utah that has, what, like 4 or 5 million people, it's such a small percentage of the entire United States. I only sell on occasion to Utah. But still, technically, legally, Margot, you still probably, if you're legally, you should be charging that person sales tax if they buy from your state. And even if you're just starting out on eBay, it might be wise to go ahead and get one of those, okay? But I guess the big reason why you'd want it later, though, is to legitimize yourself with suppliers. Yeah, I agree, Matt. You get that LLC to protect your assets and your livelihood. You bet. Always better to be safe than sorry. So, guys, you got that on number 2? State reseller license? Okay, get that through the state as well. Number 3, EIN, which somebody tell me what that stands for. Does anybody know what the acronym is for? It's also called a federal tax ID. Okay, note the difference. Federal. Number 2 is a state. What does EIN actually stand for? Yeah, good. Employer identification number. Okay, so let's talk about this. Why do we need an EIN, guys? Good guess, though, Marco. I'll say that's a great guess. Enterprise Industry Code. Pretty darn close. You'd have convinced me if I wouldn't have known otherwise. But Employer Identification Number. When you do your taxes, a lot of, we pay federal tax, don't we? Or we should, right? Well, your employer identification number it's kind of like your business's social security number. So when you do taxes on your own, you're using your social to, as part of your tax return. If you're doing your business tax return, you're usually using this number to identify who the business is. It's like your business's social. That's one way to look at it. And yet again, it's something that comes up often on applications to get set up with suppliers. So how do you go about doing it? Well, this is something you get from the IRS, okay? So I'll put this down here. It's from the IRS. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything but some time and some know-how to fill out the application. I've got the link here. I usually just Google it. So if I'm on Google, I do apply for EIN. And usually I get this link right here that comes up in Google. It's a long, nasty looking link. So I'll paste it here for you guys. That's the link. Okay, it'll take you to this page, and you can apply online, you can apply over the phone. It's the last thing you'll want to get. You want to make sure you get your name and your reseller permit first, then get your EIN very last. That's usually what I recommend. And it is nice that it's free. The reseller permit sometimes costs a little bit of money, and so does setting up an LLC or getting a business name. That sometimes costs a little money, but the EIN is totally free. It's just the last thing you guys would do. So if you have those three things, guys, and look, these first two are state dependent. So if you have a state that's kind of slow about registering a name or getting a seller permit or reseller permit, it may take several weeks. Okay, this one is quick. You can get that almost in just the same day. And in some states you can get numbers 1 and 2 very quickly. But it depends on your state. And so if you have to wait for a little while, that's not totally uncommon. Okay. But if you have this done, guys, like you're pretty much good from a legal standpoint, and you have two options. I mean, either go out there and pay somebody just to do all this for you so that it's done and you feel good about it and you can rest well at night, or do it yourself, right? I don't care what you do as long as you do this, as long as you get it done. If all of us had all the money in the world and it wasn't a big deal to invest, I think you should all go out and pay somebody to do this, just to make sure it's done right. But if you're on a little bit of a budget and you've got to kind of do this stuff by yourself, you can. And that's why I wanted to show you this today as well, is that you can go out and do it on your own if you want to. Okay? It's not as wise. Pay somebody if you can, but if you can't, go ahead and do it this way. Do it on your own. Okay? Now, if you have these things in line, more than likely, most of these wholesale suppliers that are out there, they're wholesale drop shippers, potential vendors and partners, you'll look legitimate, and they'll probably be willing to work with you. Okay? Sometimes they have other requirements, and for those things, you can contact your coach. But I would say if you have these things all set up, you're pretty good to go. Okay? All right, let's see. Any other questions about this? I know this was a review for a lot of you guys who are here live with me. But questions in general about numbers 1, 2, or 3? Or do you guys feel like you're pretty good just from a legal and business setup standpoint? And if you are, great. We'll be using this for some of our newer clients later on. I'll give you guys just a second to ask questions, and then we'll finish up. Just as a reminder, too, next week, schedule doesn't change. You're welcome to check the website for webinar times, but it should be same schedule. We're adding a few, so that's why I remind you to check. But same time, same place for the eBay one next week. You guys are a pretty easy crowd. not a lot of questions. That's an interesting question, Angela. She says, what NAICS code should we use for the state resellers permit? An internet business, the problem is with the NAICS, it's a way to sort of classify what type of like industry or business you're in. They don't really have any good classification for an internet business, I find. I can't even remember the last one I chose. Let's see. Actually, let me go. Here's a better place to go. So, like, sometimes when you're applying for some of this stuff, you're required to give them an NICS, and that's supposed to help them target what industry you're in. Well, you can come to a page like this, and I'll send this out to all of you guys, and you can try to drill down and figure out where you fit. So you'd come in here and you'd say, well, I'm not agriculture, not mining, construction, not manufacturing, not transportation, wholesale trade, not really, retail trade, probably. And then you get into retail trade and you say, okay, I'm not building materials, not general merchant, well, maybe general merchandise, apparel, accessories, home furniture, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say miscellaneous retail. And then it gives you a bunch of options here. See these codes right here are the NAICS codes. You can find whatever your business classifies as. I can't remember the one that's best for what we do, but you can sort of find what'll work. It's not that big of a deal from what I understand. So just do your best and find one that sounds close to what it is we do. There's not like an e-commerce or selling products online. Nothing overly specific. I think there might be like there actually might be in one of these categories. I can't remember, but you'd have to look through this. Again, I'll send you guys out the link, and you guys can look through if you run up against that. Okay. Does that help? Does that make sense, Angela? I have to look into it to give you a better answer. Again, I like to throw out the disclaimer. This is stuff that I let the legal people do generally. So take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, good point. A lot of times your business registration is with the Secretary of State. Good. You know, Michelle, I may be hosting some of the new ones. Michelle just asked if I'm going to be hosting some of these new webinars. I do 2 a week right now. I'm considering adding a third. And I'm not sure 100% on the topic, but it may be kind of a miscellaneous one for whatever I feel like needs to be covered. Or I've definitely considered doing one on the Volusion Web Builder and spending more time with you guys who are working on building your websites. I do marketing and eBay right now. I do very little with the development of sites, and so I feel like that might be a good one for me to present on. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not sure on that, Matt. I'm not sure. That would be a question for somebody who knows better than I. I know there's different types of LLC. I don't know about LLCs. I don't know about what you would actually do with some of those certificates. I'm not sure. I've had partnerships in the past where we've had just a normal LLC. You can have like a partnership LLC too if you're in a partnership. Anyway, I don't know all the ins and outs of that. People that are way smarter than me that focus on that would know. Okay, well I'm gonna finish up. For those of you guys who are watching this recorded, thank you for coming along. And those of you guys who are here that made time for us live, you always contribute and add to this, so thanks for coming too. Hopefully, you guys who are wanting to do your business on your own from a legal standpoint, or even if you had somebody do it for you, you understand a little bit more of the intuition behind what's needed. Okay? Thanks again. We'll see you next time.